I'm convinced that influencer marketing is the oldest type of marketing, which is word of mouth. Because back in the days when people didn't have Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, the way we exchanged information about, a certain product or place, it would be, like through talking. You would talk to your friends, I would talk to mine, we
Yeah.
would tell them, oh, it was a simple conversation over a phone or I don't know, somewhere in the bar or in the kitchen.
Welcome everyone. We are live and colored with Amina Gadjieva, the founder and CEO of Influence Space. Amina has spent nearly 7 years building and executing influencer campaigns across the US, Europe, Asia. I literally do not know where she hasn't invaded yet, but she has worked across multiple countries, and her agency is built around a simple promise, that is making budgets work harder through data-driven execution and doing it with true end-to-end operations. And I'm really excited to have her here. Amina, I'm really happy that we could make it happen today.
What an intro. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much for introducing me the best way possible. A lot of things that I couldn't even think about myself. You said them all. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
You are doing
Thanks a lot.
better than that. You are welcome. You are welcome. Can tell us a bit about yourself?
It's something that I'm not used to because I barely talk about myself, but sometimes it's refreshing. So thank you for asking. So yeah, like you already introduced me, I'll just repeat your words. I am Amina. I am the CEO and founder of Influence Space, and Influence Space is an agency, influencer marketing agency, where we manage influencer marketing campaigns for global brands from end to end. And what I mean by end to end is basically we serve as an addition to your existing team, or we can be your just new team if you have a small capacity. And basically we take the entire influencer marketing um, you know initiative under our control, so you don't have to deal with that at all. And before starting my agency, we are, by the way, pretty new. We started in July 2024. And before that, I was working for many brands and with so many influencers, managing I don't know how many campaigns across the globe. And like you said, I don't know the market that I didn't work with. So it's been quite a journey. So and after my last position as an employee, I um, I was leading and I was building an influencer marketing department for another agency, and I had to manage 12 people, coach them, manage, and hire. And it was a pretty successful project that I dedicated over 1 year of my career to. And yeah, after I left that company, I did everything I could for them, and it was pretty healthy decision to leave. And I decided that yeah, now I'm ready with that experience, with everything that I tried, everything that I've done, all the mistakes, because there's no job without mistakes. With all the successful cases, everything that I've learned, I felt that I was ready to build something on my own. And that's how this idea came to me to start my own agency. And here I am, just developing, growing. And just over the past 2 months, we have two new team members, and they are focused on the entire effort. And their job is basically to grow and develop the company, so I can breathe finally. So yeah,
Yeah.
we have big plans for 2024. So yeah, that's where we are now.
Wow. Wow. That's an amazing journey you've had. So basically, your expertise is all about influencer marketing. you live that reality, you drink it, you eat it. That's your day-to-day thing. Can you
Oh,
tell
yeah.
us about what it is, influencer marketing? Tell us what it is.
Of course. Yeah, you're absolutely right. That's my life. Uh, for the past, well, now 8 years. Wow, my God, I'm old. So, 8 years, I was doing that. Influencer marketing for me, um, is something that will never die, in my opinion,
Mhm.
in marketing, because in
Wow.
marketing industry, it's such a fast growing and changing, um, industry. A lot of things die. Like, for example, we've seen that, you know, crazy growth of paid ads, and now they're slowly going down. And it's, you can say that about different aspects of influencer of marketing, but influencer marketing for me is something that will stay relevant for many many years. That's, the reason why is because for me, I'm convinced that influencer marketing is the oldest type of marketing, which is word of mouth. Because back in the days when people didn't have Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, uh, the way we exchanged information about, a certain product or place, it would be, like through talking. You would talk to your friends, I would talk to mine. We would tell them, oh, it was a simple conversation over a phone, or I don't know, somewhere in the bar or in the kitchen. I've seen this product, I tried it and it's cool, and you should. That's how we would promote stuff without even knowing. Now, of course, time changes, preferences changes, platforms. We have new platforms, and now those bars and kitchens and phone calls, they turned into social media, and that's where we exchange information. That's where we recommend stuff, and basically that's the same word of mouth, but it just got a different platform, which is social media. So that's why I believe that if you do it right, if you adapt your approach and your strategy to trends, to platforms and how they operate, you can have this channel work for you effectively for, you know as long as you want. You just have to do it wisely. Of course, now you cannot use influencer marketing, the way you used it like 3 years ago. You have to adapt.
Yeah.
But for me, influencer marketing is, it's a word of mouth. You just have to do it right.
Wow, you have to do it right. You have to do it right. Your positioning is super clear. Every dollar delivers. So that
Exactly.
means whatever a client invests in the project, there is no loss. When you are running influencer as a real growth channel, that statement is either a slogan or it's an operating system. How do you actually operationalize that inside campaigns? Like, what are the non-negotiables you put in place so that every dollar spent turns into measurable outcomes?
That's a great question. And yeah, that slogan is not random, and it is something that is, it's in the base of how we work with our clients. Because when I said you have to do it right, what I meant is that influencer marketing is super measurable now, and you can actually predict the outcome of each campaign. You just have to calculate. You have to have this approach when you choose an influencer, not based on their, polished content or how many stories they post a day. Yeah, it is important, but the first thing that you should pay attention to is their connection with their audience, because you don't work with influencers, you work with their audience, and that's what's important. So you have to measure, and it is an available information whenever we reach out to influencers that we want to hire for our clients. We ask for insights, we ask for the numbers, link clicks, conversion, whatever information they have, we request it. And then we have this our internal tool that I developed years ago, and I still use it. It's basically a bunch. It looks very messy, but I know how to work it. So it's basically a big list of formulas, and the way I do it is just I get that information, we input it in that big table, in that big spreadsheet,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
we calculate the outcome automatically. So we don't hire influencers if we if on that spreadsheet we don't see the outcome. If it's nothing and it's not something that we are looking for, it doesn't make sense for the client, we just don't work with that influencer. So for us, it doesn't matter how many followers you have, how many likes you get on your posts, or how pretty your content is. What we care about is the outcome that we predict before we even sign a contract. So that's why we yeah, pretty much all the clients that we had, they have success, and that's our priority, and that was something that I prioritized when I decided to build this agency. So my team, even whenever we have a new team member, I always educate them on that tool, how to use it, and that's our priority. That, if an influencer doesn't make sense in that spreadsheet, if the
Hmm.
numbers don't make sense for the client, there's no collaboration.
Wow, that's super golden. When you mention about checking conversions, you reminded me of Ben Francis. I was
Mm.
once watching YouTube, Stephen Bartlett's podcast on YouTube, and he interviewed Ben Francis, and while I searched him up, so in his story way back in 2012 when he was living with his parents. He was 19 years old in the UK. So he was screen printing shirts in his parent garage, and he didn't have a massive ad budget. He just had this idea to send product to YouTubers he actually watched and admired. But here is the behind the curtain magic. He wasn't just about the vibe, but he was more about the operational discipline. He and his company treated influencer marketing, I would say, like a science. They gave every athlete a unique link. So they tracked every click, every conversion, and the exact ROI of every human being in that program. So they found that customers coming from the influencers actually had about 25% higher order value than the regular traffic. And some way, somehow, they managed to build this family feel community called the Gymshark Squad. That was the name. So while they were simultaneously running this ruthless data back operations where they knew exactly who was performing and who wasn't. In your experience, how do you operationalize that balance? And how do you push influencers for hard ROI data without killing that family vibe that make the partnership work in the first place?
Well, the balance is something. Um, in my experience, the way I keep the balance is that first of all, we prioritize numbers if it's a new influencer, and
Mm-hmm.
what I believe in, and this is actually a trend. It was a trend in 2025, and I feel and I predict that it's going to be a big trend in 2026. You have to build an ambassador program. Uh, it's your community of influencers. It's your family, basically. It's your advocates. So what we do to balance it out is that we work with a bunch of influencers. Of course, if the client can afford it, we work. Let's say we work with 50 influencers, and of course, by the end of each month, it's also our job, and this is also what we do. Our team, we analyze the outcome of each campaign, of each collaboration. And based
Mm-hmm.
on that, we choose the best performing influencers, and we continue working with them, but we turn them into ambassadors. And here you start creating this family. You start creating this, you give them creative freedom, you give them additional perks, you make them close to the brand, and of course you have to make sure that they are comfortable with that as well. But
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
our this family community building starts after we work with them and we see that, okay, if it makes sense for the brand, and because successful collaboration, when there is an outcome, sales or brand awareness, whatever the goal was, if you achieved it, it means that it was successful for both sides. It means that the audience of that influencer resonates with the product a lot. So they appreciate this advertisement. They appreciate that, this influencer suggested that product. So they believed it. And it's also beneficial financially for the brand. So it's a win-win situation for both sides when a campaign is successful. You cannot, you know, it's like in real life. When you meet a person, you cannot call them your friend right away, right? You have to see if it works, if you match, if your values are the same, if your interests are similar, and then you start building this, friendship or family. The same with influencers. First, you have to see if there is a match between interest to your product, interest to your brand, between audience interest, if they're interested in this product, in whatever this influencer is saying. So successful campaign and ambassadorship, it's a combination of many factors. So before we start building community and ambassadorship, we have to make sure that it works number wise, and then of course we turn them into this close community of people. They know the brand, they know the brand representative, we introduce them, and that turns into successful long-term collaboration. So you have to see the numbers first, and then if it makes sense, you move on to starting a family.
Wow, wow, I love that point. And to add a bit of operational context here for our listeners, I think the secret sauce in Gymshark's approach wasn't just also collecting data. I think it was also sharing it back with the athletes. Too many brands operate in a black box and they treat creators like vendors. They will be like, post this and we'll tell you what worked. Post post this and we'll
Yeah.
tell you what they didn't like. But I believe true operational excellence is when you open the dashboard, you sit down with the influencer and you say, hey, look at this. When you wore this cloth, sales spiked 20%. When you did this, this happened. And when you do that, you aren't policing them with data. You are coaching them, and you are also empowering them to be better business owners. And that turns the data from a weapon into a tool for relationship.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And actually, I remember we did this ambassador program with for one of the clients. And what we did is, after we saw that, okay, it makes sense, and the influencer is interested, and the brand is, has some benefits from that collaboration, then we of course we offered them to be an ambassador. What it means is that you can include a lot of different perks, and it is important to make them feel like a part of the brand, because for a lot of influencers, especially the beginners, they don't know how to make it their business. They don't know how to negotiate, they don't know how to make money on it. And you shouldn't, as a brand, and I see that a lot, I don't like it. A lot of brands take advantage of that.
No.
Instead of taking advantage of that, you get them on board and you coach them how to do it right, to make sense for them. So I agree with your point about coaching them on how to be better business owners, because beginner influencers, they cannot afford just doing social media without having a side job. So they have a side job, they do social media, and then they do 50% here, 50 there, and they just burn out and they leave one or another, and that usually leads to collapse. So so for me, it is important to listen to creators, to give them creative freedom, to support them, and help them see, and help them see how to make money, and actually help them make money. So I never negotiate deals that it's like purely beneficial for the brand. It is important that influencers, because that's their motivation, money.
Yeah.
To start with
Right.
at the beginning, it's money. So it is important to show them that, okay, working with this brand and doing it right and actually investing and making effort will bring you money, because that what brings money to the brand.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a win-win situation for both.
Yeah, that's really true. Let's talk about the tool you are using, which I believe you mentioned earlier. A proprietary forecasting tool that predicts campaign outcomes with about 87% accuracy. That's a strong claim in the channel. That's noisy. What did you build that tool to solve? And where does it create the biggest clarity? Is it influencer selection, creative direction, budget allocation, or maybe stakeholder expectation?
My tool is something that I was developing over the years, because when I just started working with influencers back in the days, like maybe 5, 6 years ago, influencer marketing was not as measurable. So it was a very, wobbly area, and brands were not ready to invest in it because they didn't know what result it would bring. So, uh, you know, if you look at other marketing areas, they are predictable, and they were predictable back in the days. So for me, it was important to show the brands that I was working with that this channel can bring money. And when I started receiving the first questions, like, okay, if we work with this influencer, what are we gonna get? And I was like, I don't know. Let's try. But it's not how you operate business. It's not a business decision. If you just, oh, let's take a chance. No. So for me, it was important to learn, first of all, for myself how to invest wisely and how to predict, even if it's approximate outcome, just something that I can present to the brand. Like, okay, if we invest in this collaboration, this is how much we're gonna get, conversion rate and impressions and stuff like that. Because you cannot come to your boss, your manager, and say, okay, let's work with this influencer because the content is pretty. It's okay, but it doesn't work. So
Mhm.
and I started, analyzing and thinking how how I can make my channel, how I can predict what my channel is gonna bring. So first, I looked into the only way you can do that is you don't look at likes, you don't look at
Mhm. Yeah.
comments. You have to look at engagement rate. You have to look at link clicks when you post a direct link
Yeah.
in your stories. So you have to look a little deeper. So to look a little deeper, you have to, before when you reach out to an influencer, you have to ask them to send that information to you so you can calculate. So I started doing that, and of course it was a big learning curve to put it all together. So it took me some time, and calculate, and then my spreadsheet, at the beginning it was just maybe 3 4 columns, just 3 4 lines of data, and then it turned into, like, now I think it's 20 lines, 20 different
Mm.
formulas that I use to calculate conversion rate. I always request from a brand to send me their LTV, which is lifetime value of the product. So I request all the information. So that tool is was helpful to me, first of all. And then when I started working for agencies, I realized that nobody does that. And a lot of agencies that I was working with or was working for, they they couldn't predict. They could provide to their clients something like cost per million, CPM.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
wouldn't make business decisions based on CPM. So I started using my tool there. in that company. And so my spreadsheet was my tool. Uh, it's like my baby that I was
Hmm.
growing and coaching
Yeah.
and nurturing and polishing, and now it's a full comprehensive tool that I share only with my team, and just to make sure that our clients they get informed decision, they make informed decisions when they hire an influencer. So yeah,
Wow.
that. But it's messy. I'm gonna tell you, it's messy. It's a lot of, but it's
Yeah,
helpful.
with these
But
formulas,
it's
it
don't
looks
waste
like
any.
you become with this formula. It looks like you become a mathematical teacher.
It is my. I in school I was so bad at math. I was terrible. Oh my
Oh.
god, it was so embarrassing. My brother is really good at it. I was the opposite. So when I started working with influencers at the beginning, it was fun because there was no math, there was no numbers. It was so fun.
Oh.
And when I realized that it has to be, backed with math, I was like, okay, we have to do it. And now it's 50-50, creative side and math. So yeah, here we are.
Mm-hmm. And by the way, math is one of my expertise because I study applied math in school.
Oh my God. Okay, I need you on
Yeah,
board then.
so I'm a bit good at it.
Wow, I envy people who are good at math. It's like my pain, whenever I have to do something that has to do anything with math, it's like I torture myself. So so we need someone like you.
Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. And I think you explain it in such a clever way because I really like how you are using the forecasting to not to pretend you can predict everything, but to create alignment and better decision in a noisy environment. And it come across like you've built a practical system you and your team actually trust and not just a shiny dashboard. Kudos to you and
Thank
the team.
you.
Like
Thanks
that's
a
a
lot.
brilliant way. And
Thanks a lot.
you also talk about managing the entire campaign life cycle, that's strategy and outreach, ROI analysis, etc. Where do you see the most breakdowns when brands try to run this themselves? What's this
Well,
leaky pipe that kills ROI?
do you have another 3 hours? Because I can go on and on.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Let's go. Let's go. Pour
Okay.
out some information.
First mistake, I briefly mentioned it already, is uh okay, I'm gonna get emotional because it's actually pain, and I
Don't,
struggle
please
when I
don't.
see that. Um, a lot of brands, they work with influencers. You do
Hmm.
not work with influencers, you work with their audience. So I see that a lot. Brands come to me, we have initial call, and I ask them what they've done before with influencers, and they're like, "Oh, it was all just waste of money." And I ask more questions, and I'm not lying, I'm not exaggerating. 90% of them, they say that, okay, we hired this influencer because they have, nice looking content and a lot of comments and a lot of likes.
Yeah.
That's good. I'm
Mhm.
happy for those influencers, but you don't work with somebody else's likes or comments. You
Yeah.
work with their audience. So you have to see how, you know, that's why I mentioned engagement, right? You have to look at
Yeah.
it. It is
Engagement.
important. And you have to not just look at it and it's like if it's high, you work with them. No, you have to calculate how many leads, because I've seen a lot of influencers. I put their insights. I insert them in my tool, and I see that conversion is high. But then I calculate how it will apply with the clients' numbers, and it doesn't make sense. So you have to look at their audience. You have to look at the numbers to confirm, to make sure that the audience is in the alignment with that influencer.
Hmm.
So first
Yeah.
first mistake, brands don't work with audience; they work with with the influencers. So that mistake number
Mm-hmm.
one. Mistake number two, they don't repeat collaborations with the best performing influencers. That's what I was saying also before. Ambassador program, advocate program, whatever you call it. But you have to analyze and see and acknowledge your best performing collaborations, influencers, and get back to them for additional collaboration. And you do it as many times as you need until you see that the numbers are getting lower, and that's when you stop. So it can be, 5 collaborations, 3, 2, it can be 10, it can be, 30, whatever.
Yeah.
But until this channel is worn out, you use it. And unfortunately, a lot of brands, they don't do that. Another mistake, third mistake, there is no optimization. Optimization is very critical, but I don't know why a lot of brands just skip it. So they work with an influencer and they don't see great, I don't know, sales or whatever, and they're like, "Oh, it was not successful." Why? You have to analyze why before you go to the next influencer.
Yeah.
And when I have those initial conversations with brands, I ask them like why it was not successful. Did you? They were like, oh, because influencer is not good. Why? Why it was not good? So you have to
Yeah.
really analyze, and that's also what we do. We analyze each campaign, what went wrong, because sometimes it's a rare case, but sometimes um, there you can have a great influencer and there's a great potential, but the initial collaboration was not good. Something was not aligned, so you have to see that and maybe return and do another collaboration with them but differently, and then it's going to work. So we had cases like that as well. So that's mistake number 3. Number 4, I would say, uh oh, yeah. Oh, I love this one. Um, brands see, I told you. Brands, sometimes, actually not sometimes, in a lot of cases, they they stick to the traditional influencer marketing. They just do one collaboration. Influencers, they post content and that's and bye-bye. They're done. They're gone. Oh,
Ooh.
not saying that you have to go back and just, push it. No,
Yeah.
each collaboration in each package, you can include so many things. UGC is something that a lot of brands they just skip. UGC it's user generated content, and what we include in almost every package, if the brand can afford it again,
Yeah.
is when we work with an influencer, we tell them that okay, you post this content on your social media. If they have multiple social media, if they're all active, we post on, all of them. But
Yeah.
it's not the main point. We also request the raw material that
Mm-hmm.
the brand can reuse on their social media. And we always push brands to do like partnership on social media, like reshare the content that influencers posted. So you have to
Yeah.
do you just see you have to then take this raw footage and use it on multiple channels like your social media, paid ads, website, email marketing, whatever you have in your
Uh-huh.
marketing, you have to reuse that content. And that's I would say it is something that a lot of brands, I don't know for what reason, um but I see that a lot. I'm sorry, is it from my side or from your
Wow.
side?
Wow. That's a lot of problems brands get themselves to. And they are such a real answer. And honestly, it's the kind of thing only someone who has been in the trenches would call out. And I love how you didn't make it sound like some abstract marketing problems, but it's a I see it as an operations problem. And I can hear the pattern recognition in how you describe it. And one frame I've found helpful for teams is also to map the life cycle like a pipeline and ask where that where does the momentum die? And usually it's either brief clarity, approval latency, tracking integrity. And if one of these fails, ROI can leak quietly, even if the creators are doing great. And what you are describing really reinforces that the creative is only as strong as the system carrying it. And that's a strong perspective you've given. And I
Thank
believe
you.
in influencer marketing, there is a gap between when you have to pay out and when you have to get paid. And what's been the most important shift you've made to keep cash flow calm as you scale?
Oh, cash flow is a problem nowadays. And you know, I'm not gonna lie, it is a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And so far I was maybe lucky not to have big giant delays like a lot of my colleagues and other, you know, business owners that I talk to. Yeah, I don't know why, but a lot of brands, a lot of agencies, they face this late payments and sometimes like 6 month late, 12-month late. I I've never experienced that big of a gap, but it is a problem and there are some delays. So if you are about to start your agency or any other business and you it's that kind of business where you get paid by your customers, you have to be prepared for for that. It is there, even if it's written in your contract, it's still going to be there. Unfortunately, not unfortunately, the way we, of course, we have influencers to pay to. And at the beginning, when I was just about to start my agency, um, the cash flow was one of the things that I analyzed deeply to make sure that we don't have any legal problems with influencers that we work with. So, one of the problems that I saw in other agencies is that they would handle all the payments to influencers also. So, they would have a client, they hire influencers for them, and they pay to influencers also on behalf of the agency. And when I was building my agency, what I did is that I completely erased that. So we do not handle any payments to any influencers ever. So that stays on the client side just to make sure, okay, I can handle a late payment, that's fine. But when I work with influencers, I work with them on behalf of my agency. So my agency has a reputation in the influencer world. So they have to know that I'm a trustful resource. That if I go to them with an offer, they can trust me, and they will get paid. So and influencers, they have their community, and they know agencies that they shouldn't work, and in agencies that they should work with. So you have to have a trusted name in that industry. So when I built my agency, I it was an important point in my cash flow, in my financial part, is that we don't handle any payments that brands make to influencers. It's only on their side. And that helps me a lot. We've never faced any issues regarding that area. So yeah, agency, when you started, it is important that you're prepared for a lot of challenges when it comes to finances, but it's also important to hire people who understand that. And maybe I would suggest, based on my mistakes, is to have at least some financial like some funds that you can put in your business for the first
Mm-hmm.
couple of months that you can pay to, that you can use to pay to your team, because you have to be prepared that your first clients, they might be late, and you cannot just rely on somebody and you put your responsibility or your financial responsibility on someone else. No, you have your team, you manage your team, you pay them yourself. So you have to be prepared for that. So for me, what I did, I hit some fun. It was not a lot of money. I'm not a billionaire, so it was some money that I that I used at the beginning, my personal money. And then
Mhm.
I started building. You have to have something like also a tip, a small tip to maybe young business owners, agency owners. Um, it's better to have multiple bank accounts linked to your business, and because you use them to pay to your team. And what I do is that I have one business account where I have like I use it like a saving account,
Yeah.
and another one that is, I operate and I pay all the expenses from that account.
Mhm.
So it's important to have that, saving ish account to kind of to have that security for your team. So because it is important for me, the people that I work with, to make sure that they are safe when it comes to finances.
Wow, wow. Thank you so much for sharing your insight. These were incredibly valuable, and I really appreciate your time and openness. I believe if we continue this conversation, we could last for hours talking
Oh
about
yeah.
different aspects of influencer marketing. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much because, like I mentioned before, I love the questions. I love your approach because we had that initial call, and your spirit, your energy creates this absolutely beautiful environment where
Thank you
you,
very
as a
much.
professional, you don't feel like you're, it's a business meeting. You don't even feel like it's a podcast. You feel like it's a talking, and it's beautiful, and I really appreciate your approach to managing this podcast and managing the conversation. You are such a sweet soul.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So, guys, that's a wrap for today. I will see you in the next episode. Thank you all. See you in the
Bye
next
everybody.
episode.